Welcome to Scam Squad. I'm Patty Teal, and Deputy District Attorney Vicki Johnson is on a very well-deserved vacation, but we still have our wonderful sponsors here with us today. We have Doris Ruth, who's the fraud manager at Montecito Bank and Trust, who has her pulse on the latest scams that are happening in our area. So welcome, and thank you so much for being here, Doris.
Thank you once again for inviting us, and we always love to put out the word on what's happening recently.
We were chatting a little bit before we got started today that you're getting warnings from your processors. Could you explain that to our listeners a little further?
They process our debit and our credit card transaction. We supply certain information to them, vice versa, and then the transaction is approved or declined. And so they keep a really good pulse on what is happening throughout the United States. So we're just one of their institutions that they help process the transactions for with us. So they pretty much get a notification, or they see items that are happening currently. And if they see something of a bigger trend, they do go ahead and let us know so that we can keep an eye out for it, and to also educate our customers. So it's like a two-way street between we rely on our processor and our processor relies on us to also send out this information to our customers. So I'm basically going to read off some of the information that they've provided to us and get a sense, and I'm also going to give you some of the tips and tricks to avoid being a participant and possibly being scammed. They stated the recent health concerns that have impacted every aspect of our lives have now led consumers to increasingly turn to digital payments, which is so true. We all do more online banking. We're constantly online to look at our balance, transfer money between accounts, friends, etc. But this also enables the fraudsters to hide among the larger volume. So they're starting to take advantage. Well, they aren't starting. They've been taking advantage of the pandemic, and they're using fear and uncertainty to victimize the consumer. They explained to us in one scenario, the consumer receives a text from a fraudster, to alert about a suspicious transaction. And then upon receiving a response text declining the transaction from the consumer, the fraudster then calls the consumer pretending to be the fraud department of the financial institution. And we've talked about that quite a bit about they're trying to fish. They go ahead and use the name of Montecito Bank and Trust. They use our phone number, but it's just it's not actually where they're calling from. And then they go ahead and gain access to the consumer's online banking account by requesting the username and the one-time password, which once again, a financial institution will never, ever ask you for. So, and then they go ahead and they reset the password, because then you can't get back into it, because now you don't know what they've reset that password to. And then upon gaining access to the online account, the fraudster goes ahead and registers for a person-to-person payment. And in Montecito Bank and Trust, we use Zelle. So they'll go ahead and open up a Zelle account, and then they'll go ahead and attempt to send the payments. So in a majority of these cases, our processor detected the fraud activity and the transactions as high risk. Then the user then received what we call a stepped-up authentication, which is like a two-way text that you would get normally, and you get like an authorization code. Well, they'll convince you to give that authorization code to them, because once again, now is giving them that, because it's been tagged as high risk, they're getting that information so they can still go ahead and gain access into your account. So in these cases, the fraudster calls to convince the consumer to authorize the stepped-up authentication request so that the consumer can receive a refund. So they're even stating that, hey, if you do this, there's a refund that's coming through that should be applied to your account from a previously fraudulent transaction. In reality, the consumer is not getting a refund, but is sending the payments to the fraudster. They're just trying to convince you to do something. What we go ahead and tell our customers, one, the bank is never going to ask for your user ID and your password. And then if they are contacting you and you believe you're talking to the financial institution, don't just hang up and you look for your bank's phone number from going into the internet and actually looking up that phone number. Our processor has asked us to educate our consumers with. So, one, your financial institution will never call you to request information you receive via text or pressure you to reset your online banking login password. And then two, don't trust caller ID. Caller ID may be modified to show your financial institution's name. So that's been a big one recently. Don't provide your online banking login credentials, one-time password, account number, or personal information by email or text or phone call. Using their published phone number, reach out to your financial institution to confirm that the request is legitimate. And I know we've talked about that a few times. And don't give information over the phone. If you receive a call stating that a transaction is canceled, even if the caller claims to be your financial institution, once again, contact your financial institution using a published phone number. And don't click on links in unsolicited emails or texts. And I know it's so hard not to do that because we're all curious, and a lot of times the way it's worded, you feel like you do have to click on that link, but only click on links that you're expecting to get something from. And even sometimes a friend, let's say a friend says, oh, I'm going to send you a text, I'm going to send you an email, or, this is really funny. Even then, even though you know it's coming from a friend, you don't know if they've been hacked and now they're sending something on to gain more information from your side. So, and lastly, one of the items they gave us is don't give an unsolicited caller remote access to your computer. And that's been a big one recently. We've had a lot of customers receive pop-ups, and we still continue to receive that. You've got a problem with your security on your computer. Oh, we see there's an error. This is Apple. We can help you. Call this 800 number. And you call, and of course it's not Apple. And then they ask you to get gift cards. Never, never, ever, ever go purchase a gift card. It's not legitimate. I mean, a company will never ask you to do that. So hopefully these were some good tips.
They were some good tips. I have a couple quick questions. So it seems like everything that I go online and log into, almost everything, requires that two-step authentication. But they send a text to me, and then I put it in the blank space where they ask you to put it in. So these fraudsters are not doing it that way. They're sending it, but then they're calling and asking you to give it to them over the phone. Is that what you were saying happens?
You may be getting a call from processor, and then there's a two-way text that is being sent, and they call you immediately because they know that you've got that text information, and they perpetrate to be the bank, the fraud department, to give you that information. So it's usually about two people or so working together in the background, and the fraudster is what we see in a couple of the instances where it has alerted a case. You do get that second authentication, but what they do is they start doing like transactions, which creates an alert as the processor, and then they know that. So they kind of know some of the system that's going on with banks and their processor, and they know you're going to get a two-way text because they did those fraudulent transactions. Right. And now they're calling you to say, hey, this is the bank again. We're trying to correct your error, the fraudulent activity. And you give them the two-way text and then they start getting into the information.
We've gotten so sophisticated. That's why we appreciate your
Very
warning
sophisticated.
so much, because I could so easily see how a very bright, savvy person could fall for this, thinking this person is trying to help them. So we really appreciate your warnings and appreciate Montecito Bank and Trust for keeping us up on the latest scams. They do keep evolving. Sometimes they have a general theme, but they act like they're trying to help you and they're not. You know, they're calling you by phone when that's not the typical way to do it. So these are really great warnings.
And it always seems like they're always one step ahead too. Because that one took us a little while to figure out. It's like, how are they getting that? You know, why is that happening? And then we realized there were some transactions right at the same time, and so they're trying that they did. So,
which made it seem very legit when they got in touch with the customer, because they did just get the code, right?
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so very much, Doris, and thank you to everyone at Montecito Bank and Trust for keeping us safe. We really appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay, have a great week.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.